Smiling pictures of a young father of three betray no hint of the madness and mayhem to come. It is a mystery. What made Ivan Lopez snap and open fire on his fellow servicemen and women at Fort Hood? New details are emerging tonight about the shooter and the female officer who stopped him before he could kill again. ABC's David Muir is on the ground leading our coverage tonight.
Tonight, the burning question in this close-knit military community shattered again by a mass shooting. Who was the man behind these pictures? Ivan Lopez dressed in his uniform, and here he is smiling in photos posted on Facebook, his children by his side. A father of three, a husband, a soldier. But something inside snapped. Lopez was a 34-year-old Army specialist with a clean record. He served 4 months in Iraq in 2011. The Pentagon says he never saw combat. But authorities say what he created here was a horror of its own. Shortly after 4 p.m. yesterday, he opens fire on the base. 4:16, the first wounded soldiers call 911.
Senator, all units supervised. We have an active shooter currently on Fort Hood.
Then he gets into his vehicle and keeps firing.
We have multiple gunshot victims.
He then walks into a second building, opening fire again. The alert goes out.
Seek shelter immediately.
A tweet from Fort Hood. All personnel on post are asked to shelter in place.
There may have been a verbal altercation with another soldier or soldiers, and there's a strong possibility that in fact immediately preceded the shooting.
Then the critical moment in this parking lot when he's confronted by that female military police officer. He puts his hands up at first, and when he reaches inside his jacket, she pulls out her gun and fires. He shoots himself in the head.
There were several instances here of clear heroism. I would cite that female MP. We're not going to release her name yet. She's germane to the investigation, but she clearly performed her duty exceptionally well.
Tonight, we are learning there were many heroes, the chaplain inside shielding the soldiers. But when it was done, he had killed 3 and wounded 16 others, 3 of them critically.
So, Doctor, they were actually brought in right through here?
Right.
Dr. Davis answered the call 5 years ago after the shootings here at Fort Hood.
But, Doctor, you never thought you'd see this happen twice.
When I got the phone call last night that this was happening, it was kind of shock and disbelief. Very quickly, that feeling passes and you just get to work.
He brought us into the ER where he is sadly treating the wounded again.
What was the worst of what you saw?
You know, I think there were several that I would consider pretty severe injuries. There was injuries to the spine, the neck, some of the soft tissues in the neck. We had chest wounds, abdominal wounds, etc.
These were gunshots?
Correct.
Among them, 27-year-old Sergeant Keisha Fountain. Her family says she tried to talk to the shooter. She was shot in the stomach. They were by her side as she underwent surgery today, and this evening the hospital telling us she made it through. She's been upgraded from critical condition to stable. And there's Carol Miller's son, too, the Dallas mom praying for him, Major Patrick Miller, among the injured. These families all want to know what could have led to this. On that same Facebook page, a post in 2013 showing Lopez in full gear and a comment, Memories of Fallujah, Iraq, 2011. Authorities say he later diagnosed himself with traumatic brain injury.
He was not a wounded warrior. He was not wounded in action to our records. No Purple Heart, not wounded in action in that regard.
Lopez moved from a base in El Paso to Fort Hood just 3 months ago with his second wife and a 3-year-old daughter. Neighbors telling me they watched them move in. No red flags, no warning signs.
So you actually saw them, and they looked happy?
Yes, sir. They seem happy.
In fact, neighbors were with his wife yesterday when news crossed of the shootings. At first, she was worried for her husband's safety.
She was crying. So I just consoled her. I told her everything would be okay, and, we all came downstairs, and, we sat there. And as soon as they announced the name of the shooter, she just lost it.
And what did she say to you, and what did you say to her?
She said, "That's him. That's him." And I didn't really say anything to her because what could I say?
Yeah.
Here's what we do know. He purchased a .45 caliber handgun from Guns Galore March 1st, a little more than a month ago. The same gun store near Fort Hood where Major Nidal Hassan bought his gun in 2009 before killing 13 and injuring more than 30 here. And while authorities here at Fort Hood were aware Lopez suffered from mental issues, seeing a psychiatrist last month, today in Washington, the Secretary of the Army said there were no warning signs of anything like this.
As of this morning, we had no indication on the record of that examination that there was any sign of likely violence, either to himself or to others.
Today, my colleague Martha Raddatz spoke to Lopez's former supervisor in Puerto Rico, who was full of nothing but praise.
So you would say he was an outstanding soldier?
That's correct. He was an outstanding and disciplined soldier.
But it was last summer when things began to unravel.
He was undergoing a variety of treatment and diagnoses for mental health conditions, ranging from depression to anxiety to some sleep disturbance. He was prescribed a number of drugs to address those, including Ambien.
Lopez was being tracked for signs of post-traumatic stress.
It's not I see you for the first time and you have post-traumatic stress disorder. Now, normally post-traumatic stress is not a diagnosis that you make on one appointment. It's something that you make over a series of appointments.
And this afternoon, new clues into his mental state as authorities continue their investigation.
We have very strong evidence that he had a medical history that indicates unstable psychiatric or psychological condition. Going through all the records to ensure that that is in fact correct, but we believe that to be the fundamental underlying causal factors.
Today, a family spokesman said Lopez was upset that he was granted only a short leave to attend his mother's funeral in Puerto Rico last year, and that no one in the family knew he was being treated for mental illness. So many questions tonight. How was Lopez able to carry his gun onto this base and inflict so much destruction in 15 minutes of chaos? For Nightline, I'm David Muir at Fort Hood, Texas.